Hello there, let's create a Discord bot using Node.js and JavaScript. In this video we'll set up the project where we will create our first basic bot and Discord application via the developer portal. Then we will be adding the bot to our Discord server, logging it in, adding basic events, message events, basic chat commands and more. The code for this video will also be in the description below. Also, not many viewers are actually subscribed, so if you could check that you are, that would really support the channel. Anyways, let's get started. VS Code. So, if you are on, we type VS Code in Google, or we go to code.visualstudio.com. So, this is an IDE, an integrated development environment, which we'll use. So it looks like this basically. So we download for Windows or whatever you're using as your operating system. And now I'm going to show you how to do it on Windows if you did not know. So you wait for this. I'm going to wait. So we're going to use it throughout the course basically. So there we go. So accept. Create a desktop icon. Okay, so we don't need these. We don't need these two, but we're gonna register it. That'll be helpful, and also we're gonna add it to the path, which allows us to type code to open the IDE. So if we press next, and that's fine, we can install, but that's all you need to do. I've already installed it. So Node.js. Now we're going to install Node.js, which we're also going to use extensively. It's a JavaScript runtime built on. It's basically the Chrome JavaScript engine, but you can use it in applications. And we're gonna use very recent features, so 14.9, that will do. Yours is probably later by the time you're seeing this, but 14 plus will be using version 14 features, so make sure you install that. And now I'm probably going to update this for the video, so if I type node v, currently I have it installed at a lower version, less updated version. So it will compute space requirements. So we're going to write our first JS code. Basically this is the same as Node.js right here. So a cool feature with Node.js version 14 is you can use this. Now 2 question marks, so if null, if this is null, then do this. If this is not null, if it's empty, do this. And it's similar to the OR operator, but if it only works for null, if the left side is null, if this side is null, then use this expression. So false. So it doesn't work for other variables, but if we type null, it's going to type true, for example. It's going to go to true. That's pretty much it. That's one feature we'll use. Another one we could type clear is if we type var a. I assume you have previous JavaScript knowledge for this course. This is a variable. We're setting variable a equals test. And we're setting variable a to equal an empty object literal. So we're going to type obj. Var obj is empty object literal. Now obj dot and then object dot property dot name. So we can set name here. So object dot name, that should go to empty string. That should return empty string. So if object.name is being set here, if we remove that, then object.name is undefined now. if object.name is undefined, and let's say name has another property, like first name, it's a bad example, it's going to throw an error. Now we don't want that, we want object.name. If object.name is not null, then first, otherwise if object.name is null, then don't run this. Just cancel here if object.name is null. So it's gonna result to, it's gonna return undefined. That's a cool feature. We'll get onto that later in more detail. So welcome to the Node.js setup wizard. Yep. Accept and then install it. Add to path. That'll be helpful. Cool. We don't need chocolatey for this. And then install. And that's all you need to do, really. And yeah. So what Node.js is basically, which we'll get onto next, probably. Next lecture is our video. Basically, they took the browser JavaScript, which I just showed you. It didn't used to be able to be executed within applications, but now it can. Recently it can. And that is what is called Node.js. So, now it is installing. Currently, if you don't have it installed, Node-v won't work for you. It should also install npm. So npm is not here though for some reason, because I'm currently it's deleted here. It's installing, but npm should not also be a thing. We're installing that right now. So Node Package Manager, we're going to install. It's how you get packages with Node.js, which we'll use. We'll use a few of them, which we'll get onto later. So when that is completed, we can just press finish, and we should have the latest Node version, which is 14.9. So it went from 7 to 9. This is also a way to update it if you want to do that. So just follow this basically, and that's it. We're ready to go. If you're using Windows, you can open CMD or whatever terminal. So I'm in the default directory here. I'm going to change directory cd, documents, then projects, then code. Okay, so I'm going to make a folder called bot1pg. I already have that folder, but so because this is being recorded kind of after the dashboard, is because I'm re-recording it, it's going back in time. So within courses, you can make this 1pg demo because I'm redoing it. Yeah, 1pg demo. I've made so many 1pgs. So what we can do now is, that's make directory by the way. So if we type ls, that doesn't work because we're using cmd. If we type dir, which lists the directories, we have 1pg demo. And we can also type explorer dot, which dot means the current directory, I believe, but not as a command. But there we go. So now we can hover over it, open with code, or we can type code and then the folder we want to open with code, which is 1pg demo. Cool. Okay, I was trying to clear it there, but now we've opened it. So if we press extensions here, now what we can do is, well, I'll show you my extensions. Here you go, here's all my extensions. You will only need like 1 or 2 of them, but I'm using the Horizon theme, by the way, if you wanted to know. Now I don't have to say it. Okay, so we're going to make a file here called bot.js. It's our first JS file. And inside bot.js, we're going to write console.log. Is it going to be hello world? No, because everyone's done that. So we're going to type hello earth. Okay, so now what we can do is we can type Control Shift and then backtick or terminal, new terminal, and that will open the terminal, which we'll use extensively. Open 2. But what we can do now, I'm using Git Bash here because I prefer Git. I prefer Bash over CMD, which is to do with the terminal that we're using, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't make much of a difference. So we can actually type lslh here, or just ls. This will list all the files in the current directory, which is this folder here. Now we know what's in there. LH is a flag, basically human readable and a special list type. But there we go. So now we can type, if we have a node installed, you should do. I'm using a very new version, so node bot.js hello earth. There we go. That's it. So first of all, let's make our bot. So we go to discord.com/developers. So npmjs.com/package.discord.js. So we'll get onto this in a minute. But for now, so we're going to create an application. Just create something here. I've already made it one. So it's a 1pg demo, and where it says create a bot, so let me simulate that. Test. I'll delete it after. So test. We're going to come here to bot. So make sure you make an application, whatever one you're using. Then we go to bot here. Now what? Now we add a bot. Now we have a bot. Too many users. Now we press yes. There we go. We get a bot user. And a bot user is no different from a normal user, but the logging is slightly different. So now we have our bot here, or application with our bot. What we do now is we're ready to go. So we have hello earth here from last time. Now this, if we go to npmjs.package/discord.js, now what is npm? npm stands for Node Package Manager, packages for Node.js, and it should be installed with Node.js. Most cases. There we go. So it's kind of a part of Node.js, but there we go. Now, how do we install it? We can type npm I discord.js. Now, we have a slight issue here. How do we install packages? Well, first of all, if we type that in, what happens? Let's see. So now we're installing discord.js. What this does is it installs discord.js and all of its dependencies as well. And then it probably installs the dependencies of them and so on. So as you can see, it did that. So all of these dependencies and the dependencies of the dependencies. It's quite complex really. It's like a tree. But there we go, we have all the packages that it uses. Now what? it generates a package log.json. We do not need to be concerned with this. This handles the dependencies of the dependencies right here. There we go. We don't need to be concerned with that. This is automatically generated. But what we do need to be concerned with is what packages are used. How do we know what packages, or how does npm know what we're using for packages? Well, it doesn't at the minute. We need to specify something. It does in a way because there's a package log.json, but we need to use npm init. Type npm init, and that will make a package.json. But if I type npm init yes -- yes, that just skips all of this. It asks you a bunch of questions to generate it. There we go. What now? We have disco.js. It was automatically added. Why is it automatically added? Well, when we typed npm I disco.js, it found it from our package log.json and added it into here. But we can type npm I save -- save or capital S with 1 dash, and that will do the exact same thing like that and add it to package.json. So basically, whatever we need to use in our project, it goes, whatever package we need, it goes here, whatever main package. There we go. And it's handled when we type npm I save disco.js. There we go. What now? What are we doing now? So we get rid of hello world or hello earth. So we're going to use this. We're going to copy, or we're going to type this manually so we can see what's going on. So const discord equals require disco.js. That's how you require a package from node modules. Requiring a file is slightly different, but we'll go into that later. So discord. Now discord dot has a bunch of IntelliSense, has a bunch of core properties here and classes, I guess. Now we want discord.client, that's what we're interested in. And what is discord.client? It is a class. So what can we do with class? In ESX new. And what does new class do? Let's say this is a variable called, what do we call it here? Client. It's usually, I call it bot. I prefer bot. That's what I call it anyway. So we're going to use bot and bot dot. Oh, look at this. Users, we have guilds, we have channels, we have everything we need here. Okay, a life hack here, you could say client. We don't need to type dot, we can destructure this. Client here, boom. And it does the same thing as dot client, it just gets client from Discord here, from the default export. And then, so it destructures it basically. It gets it from there, puts it there. It's cool. So, bot. Now what? We haven't started yet. So, bot.on. Now, we don't need to type that in yet, but, so it says bot.on ready. So, on means an event is listening for an event called ready, then do this. So when ready, do this. So bot.on ready, and we have a bunch of events here, very useful ones. If you look, but we're only using a few at the start. So bot.on ready, console.log ready. Yay. Now we can type. We don't need to type a message handler yet. That's just a command, kind of. We need to wait a login. the bot's not going to work if we type nodebot.js. What happens? Nothing. Nothing is happening. Why is nothing happening? Well, why is that not being called? Well, the bot can't be ready if it can't log in. So we type bot.login. Token. The token is. Copy the token here. Now, if we copy that, paste it here. Nodebot.js. Ready. So, to confirm. Now if we go to discord.com, and it shouldn't have logged us out, so if we use the app, you can use the app if you want, or the website. I use both for some reason. Can't make my mind up, but there we go. I'm being spammed as well. Ping. We don't have any commands, but if we look, the bot's online. So in the next video, we'll add some basic commands, and we'll be able to interact with this bot. So let's see that. So, what is Git? What is a Git? What is Git? Git is basically source control. It's a version control system. Source control is the same thing. So Git is a free and open source version control system that allows us to share code between yourself or others. So what I mean by sharing it with yourself is, let's say we decide to do something extremely dangerous, like this. I don't know. Let's say we make like a very dangerous move, or we're gonna do something that might break a few things. Okay, what if we mess everything up and we want in a lot of files and we want to undo that? Wow. Git allows us to revert back to previous states and save versions of your code. I use it in every project I've ever made, pretty much. So many people use Git, like Google, just large companies, Microsoft, I believe. Just name it, I guess, and they probably use Git. Oh, it's down here. I wasn't even reading this. But there we go. You can make entire courses on Git, or you can, read entire courses, or if you, learn from entire courses, I guess. Take entire courses, that's what it's meant to say. On Git, there's so much to do. I don't know all the commands myself, because there's so many commands. I don't believe these are all the commands. There's a lot of commands, there's a lot of things you can do. But I will show you the main features, which are, well, first we need to make a repository. So let's type git init. Oh, what is this? What is going on behind the scenes? ls, if we type ls, list, we can't see it in here because it's hidden. It created a .git folder, as you can see. I believe if you type lsa, it shows hidden files. So the hidden files are .git. I don't think these are valid folders, but .git. That's it. So if we do cd.git, that's the hidden folder here. Well, if you remember from last time, I believe, if you type explorer dot, boom, what have we got here? Well, we've just got a bunch of folders. So what is going on here? So we don't really need to be concerned with what's going on within the folder. That is unimportant. What is important is head. Basically, that's the current position that you're at in code. I guess the last commit from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. And there's just config. We don't need to edit any of these. I'm just showing you what it looks like in depth. Object, I believe we haven't posted anything to this Git repository yet, so as you can see it's hidden. There we go, we're inside there. So let's do something with this. So I believe this comes with VS Code. It's the Git extension. I think it's an extension. Git. I'm not sure because it didn't come as an extension. It was already here, I think. So source control. So what is this? What is all this? Don't commit anything yet. We'll get into that in a minute. There is a problem. Why use package.json? Well, it allows us to install packages. So why take our node modules with us if it's so big? We don't even need node modules within the code history, because package.json handles that. So we can just add a Git Ignore file. Boom. Now Git Ignore simply specifies which files not to add in the version control in the repository. It's also called a repo. So what we do is we're going to type config.json to hide that eventually when we get to that part. We type node modules / so it's a folder. That's it. Now you see it changes color. If we remove that, control / to comment it out. Now we save. It's gone. Now there's not many changes. Let's review that again. Oh, it's doing everything within the node modules. Now when we save, it only tracks our changes within here, our actual source code. That is good. I've made this mistake of adding the node modules and it just looks like a mess. But now we're not making that mistake. We've learned that. I think the Git ignores fine now. We can just, that's good. So we can type first, I guess. I normally name this with present tense, like add something cool. That's what is the convention in this way. So an action oriented. So add something cool. Let's just use that. Add something cool. Now, okay, we're not going to be using this very often here. I don't think we'll be using it at all, but it's nice to know. So Git Log. So it shows all the commits ever made with the repository, the code history of the project. So whenever you make a commit here, what does it do? Well, it saves a snapshot or a commit of the changes made at that time with an ID here. You've seen what Git is. It seems more intimidating than it is, but in the next video we will deploy or publish our Git repository and make it public or private, whichever you prefer. See you there. What is GitHub? Well, I said Git was a way to share code between yourself and others. So, what is GitHub? GitHub is a means to do that. So it allows people to review codes, manage projects. Basically, you needed it, I think, for the dashboard section, like the start. It was used, but that's in the future, so it doesn't mean anything. It might not mean anything to you. Basically, this was downloaded as part of the intro, I guess, the first video. But this is a Git repository, and now a repository is a project. Is a Git project, basically. That's the best way to describe it. This is a Git repository right here. It hasn't been updated with dashboard. That's the one. That's what we'll get onto. Currently, this is in the past right now, in a way, and this is in the future. What you'll do later. The dashboard. There we go. This is my way of sharing the code with you, I guess. The final product will be /the adamjr, so user repository name. This will be the final product eventually. How do we share our code with others? Well, we can also use this to back up our data, our code online. So I'm already signed in on non-incognito. So, what now? How do we create a repository? So, I'm probably going to delete this after, but I'm doing it for demonstration. 1pg demo, as you can see, 1pg demo is taken. So what we're going to do is no template. So sign in, or make an account, the adamjr on GitHub, repository name, description, it doesn't matter. So basically, private is within it. You can choose who can see and commit to it. Basically, you can add people to the project, or public, which most mine are. Basically, anyone can see it, and you can choose who sends pull requests, which basically allow them to push requests, which allow them to commit. Yeah, I think other people can send push requests, which are basically commits. So when someone sends a push request, which is when you type git push, we'll get onto that in a minute. It basically sends the changes to the GitHub repository here. So committing on its own just takes a local snapshot. GitHub does not know that this was taken until you push the changes, which pushes the non-pushed, the non-known, the unknown changes to GitHub basically. So we can initialize with a readme. We'll get onto that later, which I'm gonna do actually instead. We don't need to initialize one. Readme.md. So capital letters .md. Now, like Git Ignore, this is a markdown file. So what markdown allows is, it's like HTML in a way. Got into that later. But it allows us to type cool things, I guess. So if I think I have an extension, it's called Markdown Viewer or something. If I type hashtag, which is H1, the biggest heading you can get, test, and then I press open preview, you get a heading that says test. Now if I type something, I just get normal text. Now if I type an image here, I know an image, so if I type test, it's an alt tag. So now if I just type an image from one of my websites, there we go, we get an image. Very cool. Test. So now we can do a lot of things basically. You can read more. You can read a markdown guide. We can have tables. We can have loads of things. We can even have HTML in some cases. But there we go. What now? So we can commit this basically. I'm gonna call this 1pg demo. Basically, I'm gonna make this private because I have too many 1pg demos at this point. I have like 3 now. Git Ignore, we already have that. You can have licenses which tells others what they can do and can't do. So create. That creates a repository. So what now? Well, because we created a private repository here, for GitHub, we need to type a login details, but I think I'm already logged in, so we can type Git Push, not just the URL. We can copy that, the .git thing here, URL. What should I do now? So, Git Push origin master. Now, what's going on here? Origin is the remote name. We'll get into that. Master is the branch name. We'll also get into that. Push is what we're doing. We're pushing unsaved changes. And we don't need this URL. That's what we're going to type in a minute. But origin, it doesn't know what origin is. So if we type git remote view, remote means remote repositories here. This is a remote repository. So if we type git remote add origin, paste in this URL. Now if we type git remote view, we have this as an origin. What does that mean? We can fetch and pull changes. Now fetch means get the changes made on this repository, because you can do both things. You can make changes here or within the code. So now what? So we're going to type git pull origin master. But there is no changes made on here, so we can't pull anything. So instead we type git push origin master. Now if you're not signed in, it will give you login details here probably. Okay, so make sure you type them in. So what did that do? It says new branch master. Oh, something happened. This is when we made our commit, our first commit. Oh, this is the commit name here. We can view the Git log, the Git history here. So this is the ID, remember? So GitHub is basically a UI, or in a way, it's kind of a wrapper of Git. It's more of an extension. It has extended features. It's quite cool. It's like a Git dashboard in a way. Now we can also type in, I prefer the Git CLI. We can type git add dot, add all the files apart from the ones in Git Ignore. Then type and symbol, which means then do this, git commit, and then -m for message, and then whatever the message is within these quotes, you can do that. Or you can just use the built-in VS Code feature. Now master is the branch name, origin is the remote repository name, and it's just a conventional nickname. Now if we refresh, we get readme, which is like the preview, the description of the repository. So branches, what is a branch? A branch is like so master, what is master? That is the main branch, that's the default branch of Git. That's the default branch. Now if we go to with dashboard, now I made another branch with dashboard so that people can copy this without the dashboard, and then with dashboard what they can do is compare the changes here. That's basically what Git is. If you was listening this far, you have the fundamental knowledge of what Git is. There we go. That's basically the basics, I guess. It's basically an overview of what Git is. Cool. In the next video, we'll add basic command handling, and we'll handle multiple commands, I guess. And yes, see you there. Now we left off with a boilerplate, pretty much nothing. Let me change this back. Well, it does log in, but to a small extent. Now I want to debug this better, because currently we're just using Node, and that's a bit basic. We can step it up a bit. We can use nodemon, which automatically refreshes the bot when we save, or we can use the actual VS Code to run it. So we press F5 and then we press Node.js, and then it generates something, I believe. I think we have to, it's better if we generate it, create a launch. So we go to here, run, create a launch.json file, because we're using like global settings there, so we're going to use Node.js. Okay, let's do that. So what that did is it generated a launch.json and automatically detected the starter script, which was bot.js, because it's in here, I think. And then so when we press F5, it starts the bot. And we can refresh it by pressing Control Shift F5 on Windows, and that will restart the bot process. And that is very cool. So let's see if the bot is actually doing its thing and working. No, the commands aren't here yet, so we want to add commands. Now, we're going to start with event handling. So bot.on message. So when a user sends a message, we want to, so we have a callback function which goes to message. Now message has a bunch of properties here. And message.author, what is that going to be? Another thing with VS Code debugging, dynamic debugging I call it. When we press refresh, we added a breakpoint here. F9 on Windows. Now when we type a message, test, it goes orange, which means it's stopped here. Now we can see the value of message at one point in time, so time is stopped in the application, which is extremely better than console.log debugging, as you can see everything basically. So we have message author, that's my user ID somewhere, user ID, we've got the user avatar URL, we can see all right now. We can actually have the avatar here. Yeah, and we're interested, the content was test, so we want to go through the content and make sure it equals a command. So we can press play, continue, F5. So we're going to add a command here. So what are we going to type? Message.content. So it has to equal whatever the prefix is, and then plus the command name. So if it's ping, if we use .ping, that will be sufficient. Let's see. So await message.reply ping. That's it. Refresh. Uh-oh. Forgot async here. You need async because we're using await here. And it is asynchronous as it returns a promise. It does take time. HTTP requests, etc. And now it replies with ping. We type anything else, nothing, ping, boom. We've made our first command. We can just make another command, can't we? Well, let's do that. Let's just make 3 commands here. And one of them says hi and the other says pong. Okay, and let's space them out a bit. Oops. Okay, so now if I type .ping, it says the same thing, hi, and then pong. Yes, the commands do work. Well, can't we put every command within this? Yes, you can. But it's not good practice if we have 50 commands. Pretend they're all indented properly. But if we have loads of commands in one method, it's going to be hard to maintain. And that's why we're going to use dynamic command handling later on. But let's do that actually. So we have basic commands here. Let's separate them into files. So we're going to make a folder called commands, and we're going to make a template here called command.js. Now this is going to be a template for all command files to follow. So module.exports, we're going to export the command, which you'll see. So it's going to have a name. So it's going to be null by default. We're actually going to have a class, a new class for now, or new class command, like that. So we can type equals instead, and then execute, which will by default throw a new type error, command not implemented. So the command doesn't do anything by default, it throws that error. Let's have a hi command, or a ping command. We're just gonna have a few. So a ping command. So we're gonna import this command template. How do we do that? Well, const require. So const command equals require dot command. So now we have command.name because it's already instantiated, which means the object is created with the new keyword. So we can execute the command if we want, although we're not passing in the arguments, the guild, etc. So let's do that. We're just going to pass in the message for now. So command.execute, we don't want to do that. So we're going to specify a new class similar to command. So module. We actually don't need to new this up because it is a template. We only need to new this up if we're using it as a command, just to note. So we're going to export and new this up. That's a weird way to say it. So we're going to have a class here again. And it's we don't have to specify a name for it actually. And this is a class, by the way, so we use capitals. Extends command. So it inherits these properties if they are not defined within here. So if we just have a name that says ping, we can have slash class ping command if we want, if we're testing it, but that's up to you. So name equals ping. Okay, very cool. How do we execute this as a command? Wow. We're going to make a folder called handlers or services, whichever you prefer. Name it handlers. And now we're going to make a command.handler.js. Okay, const. So in bot, we're just going to require this. Where should we do it? Probably down here after the bot is declared. So command handler, I might move this, handlers. There we go. I'm going to name it with a dash, not a dot. So in command handler, what we do is we have a map of commands. So we're going to store all the commands within this map, and a map is basically an object. But to get a value, you type commands.get, and it will return that value, and it's stored with a key. It's called a dictionary in other languages, and it's very fast. So what we want to do is actually get all the files from this folder. How do we do that? We're going to use the file service here, or we're just going to import something in a minute. So we're going to require fs. So now we're going to type reader sync So read synchronously, read directory synchronously, so not asynchronously, so it stops runtime, I guess. Get onto that later. So the path is, I believe the path is relative to the root folder, so it should be handlers or commands. It should just be .commands. And then it takes a callback, which is the options, but we don't need to get into that. Takes other callbacks, I believe. Or it just returns all the files. So files is an array. Cool. So let's have a breakpoint here after it does it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so the files. We have command.js and ping.js. Very good. That means it is reading the files correctly from this folder. So for each file of files, okay, so obviously the file is the command file. File, so we're going to require the file, which is the name of it. So that will export this by default, the class. So we type new require file and see what happens. Add a breakpoint, or just here. Yeah, let's add a breakpoint here and then press F5. Okay, new require file. Now I'd like to set that as a variable, so command. Actually, obviously that's just getting the file, that's just requiring the file, and that doesn't work in Node.js because it is not a module. It's just a file, and we need to specify what directory it's in. So what we can do is we can have the commands directory, commands dir, and then we can have in here resolve. This is a function, path in path, sorry. We're going to import path and resolve from path. And now this will allow us to use / in, and it will convert it to the files, which we'll see, to the correct folder. So it allows us to use relative paths like this, which is very important. So .commands, this will get the absolute directory with this relative directory here. So .commands means nothing if we're in a random folder on the PC. It only means something within this file. And resolve gets the absolute path, I guess. So commands dir require, now we're going to require template string / file. So we're going to have as a template string commands dir. Okay, let's see what command is now. F5. A lot is going on. That actually worked. So name command. That is the command template. Now if we go to the next iteration, it says, well, it doesn't say much. It just says name command, which it kind of is. So a lot is going on there. And that seems to work. So that requires the file, each command it imports. So now we can just commands.set, so we can use this in future for command execution. We type commands.set, command.name, and then just command, and then function handle command, which we can just have handle. We pass in the message, if message, or we can just type commands.get message.content const command, so that will get the command with the message content. Command.execute. There's a lot going on here, make more sense later. So what do you think will happen when we type that command in? Hold on, instead of message, we want to have handle command module.exports.handle command .handle equals handle. So we're just going to handle the message as a command for now. We'll update this later. We'll actually put it up here, or down there. Okay, F5. Oh! Cannot access commands before initialization. So, let's put that right at the top there. Okay, we don't need a breakpoint here anymore. Ready. It says it's ready. .ping. Oh! Ping. Okay. Now we're getting an error. Handle is not defined. Why is that? Okay. Going a bit quick this video. So, command handler. Handlers / command handler. That's it. Refresh. .ping. Okay. Cannot read execute of undefined, so it can't find the command. So we add a question mark, which is a conditional operator. You can read more about that. So if this is null, don't continue with this. That's what it means. So it doesn't throw an undefined error. Ping. Okay. .ping now. We're getting nothing. Why is that? Let's see if the command is defined. Ping. Command undefined. Ping. Name equals ping. And the message content is ping. Interesting. What is commands? So commands, there's only one in there, which is quite strange really. Also, here, if command, so we don't want to store the template, if no command.name, continue. Let's try that now. Ping. Now obviously there is no prefix right now, so we specify a prefix here, which is, we're going to use dot, so that'll make more sense soon. So message.content, now obviously the content is .ping when we type the command. We want to have just ping. How do we do that? So we're just going to have message content slice prefix.length, so just remove the prefix from it. Const command name. Now command name. Okay, but we have a bit of a problem here. Okay. So it is getting them correctly. When we get the command, it is correct. That is good. Okay. So now when we type a command, what happens? .ping. Nothing happens, which is expected really. Okay, so if nothing happens, let's log the error. So we're gonna catch the error and we're gonna send message.reply, or we can also have message.channel.send, and then we're gonna have control Windows dot to get an emoji, and then just an error or warning, and then error dot message. Cool. And let's put this within there, so it should mess up by default. It shouldn't work. So we're gonna have a breakpoint here actually. Ping command. Oh, what is commands? Entries. Key command. Ah, the command name is not working correctly. So in ping, we can have new class extends command if we want, and see what that does. Okay, refresh. .ping. Command not implemented, so it was a minor problem it was having. I'm not sure why, but now it works. So we added new to the ping command, not the command now, the command template, just the ping command, and it worked. So now, command not implemented. Let's implement ping. In ping.js, what we can do is specify execute, and remember to pass in message to command.execute. Message.reply pong. That'll do. Done. We can add a pong emoji. Refresh. Ping. And it works. We can also have channel.send if we want. I think that's a bit better. So it's plain .ping pong. There we go. Very cool. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll add dynamic event handling, which will do the same thing as commands as we have in separate files. So this is called separation of concerns. So in the next video, we'll handle events in the same way we handle commands in separate files. There's a lot of advantages we'll get onto later, but see you there. Hello there. We left off with a command handler working, but now we're going to add an event handler. So let's add a file called eventhandler.js. Okay, so we're going to copy the format of the command handler. How are we going to do that? Well, let's just copy this right here into event handler, because we're going to use a very similar format here. So we're going to rename with click on commands and press event F2. We're going to call it events. Okay, so in handlers we're going to make folder called events. Now in events we're going to store the handlers for each of these events here. So now we have the events. What can we do with that? So we have the folder called events, so it's inside, it's not from the root commands, it's handlers and then events. So we're also gonna F2 this and rename it events directory. Okay, so in events, we're going to make a file called event.js. Similar to command.js, we're going to have a structure in place. So module.exports equals, now this class is going to be called event handler, and because events I believe are reserved in Node.js. So on is a string, and that will be, for example, on ready, on message create or something, if that's a handler. Oh, it's on message, sorry. And then we're going to have invoke, which means call the event. And now we're just going to throw a type error. Event not implemented. And then that's going to have any amount of arguments like that. So now we're going to make two event handlers called ready-handler.js, and then we're going to make a message handler.js. So an event handler, this is not commands, by the way. We're going to rename this to event. So if no event.on, continue. So event set event.on, so we store the key as the event.on. That's how we know that's how we identify the event, and then we just pass in the event call. So what we're going to do in here is, like in ping, we're going to require the event, so const event. Now event handler it's called, so I'm going to rename this to event handler. So const event handler equals require event handler. Okay, now we're going to module.exports equals new class, and now in ping we had new class extends. So extends event handler. What does this do here? It has an on, and that is ready. And then it has an invoke, which is handle console.log ready. There we go. That's the ready handler, so we don't need this. And also the message handler is also going to be async as well. We're just going to copy the ready handler like that. We're going to call it message, and we're also going to just handle this, and it's going to be an async function. So handle the message, and obviously handle message, it needs this from command handlers, and we need to reorganize this. So I think it's just we go back 2 folders, and then we go back to the above folder, and then we get the command handler. So there we go. And also this is async, so, or we can just return it, so we don't have to asynchronously run it. That's done for us. Okay, so in event handler, how are we going to listen to these bot events? Well, so we're going to require the event handler before we require the command handler. So let's see. Do we actually need to require the command handler? Well, message handler is kind of required here, so that should do the same thing. But when we listen to the events, it will know. But when we listen to the events, this is already imported and dealt with. So we're going to listen to the events. Okay. How do we do that? Well, we're just going to type, instead of events.set, we're just going to type bot. Now we need the bot. How do we get the bot? We can export the bot, actually. We can also pass this in, like require this and then pass in the bot, like that. That's called dependency injection. and that means there isn't a circular dependency between the bot and the event handler. So that might be worth doing. So what we do now is we type module.exports. Because we're requiring this, we export a function, and that we get bot from this basically. So we can type imported bot, I don't know. So bot equals imported bot. We can do that. When we have the bot, we don't need to do this. That was me deciding things. When we have the bot, we can listen to events. Now we're going to actually go back in time. Hold on. Let's copy that. So we want the events set on because we're going to use them here actually. So now what? Now we're going to rename this to bot, and then we're going to type bot. We're going to go over these events, and then we're going to listen to them. So event of events dot values. So event dot on. Obviously these are the values, so an array of this instead of the key. So keep that in mind. So event dot on. Obviously this is not a function, so bot dot on, event dot on, event then event dot invoke dot bind this. Okay. So why are we typing dot bind this? Well, if we don't type dot bind this, what happens is the value of this, so this dot on, if we don't bind this, then it will equal the value of whatever this is within this function context. So, and then if we pass this in, and it should be event, so this refers to not this class, it refers to this right here, whatever this is binded to, I guess. And then we pass in event, and that will bind this to equal the class that's instantiated, so this dot on would be valid. There we go. npm start, or just F5. Ready. Test if a command works. .ping. Is that the right one? Are we using 1pg demo here? Ping. I think we are using 1pg demo. There we go. Let's quickly do something here. So, we have our token which is exposed, and we want to use a separate file to store this in. Why would we want that? Because it's more secure and is a lot better than plainly storing it here for everyone to see. So, now there are two ways to do this. That is, use a .m file, which is a hidden environment file, which uses environment variables. Or we can just use a config.json, so I'm going to make that. Now you should be familiar with JSON files by now, to some extent. Basically a string and a value, usually a string, an array, an object, a number, or a boolean, I guess. Basically it stands for JavaScript object notation. So get rid of all that, and then what we're going to do now is extract this token in the config file. So we're going to define an object and then just have token be this. Now we're going to actually have a bot here. We're going to have a bot object contain this token. like that. And that's it. Now we can just import it with JavaScript. So how you do that? Const config equals require config.json, and now we can just type config.bot.token. Now if we look, it says config.json. It's being tracked. We don't want that. So we type in git ignore, we type dot or just config.json, and now save, and if we look, it's not being tracked. That's what we want. And now no one can see this, it's not publicly available. Very cool. And now if we refresh and log in with F5, press F5, if we look at the token, you can see it is that value. Let's see, now it's ready. So it is online and we can still type ping, boom. Very cool. Thank you so much for getting to this point. I have another YouTube series that will add a web dashboard for this bot that will also allow you to customize your server and will teach you the basics of Node.js. It will allow you to build off the knowledge you've achieved via this video. If you need further support with these videos, the Discord link is in the description. Also, I will be releasing a course on Udemy that will be a sequel to this and the dashboard series. If you are seeing this after October 2020, it should be released. The link is in the description. See you there.